This was day 524 of the Trump administration. And this, according to our friend, the historian John Meacham, was the day the age of Ronald Reagan officially ended. This was the day Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy announced his retirement. And before we go on here, just a few things about Anthony Kennedy. He's been on the court for 30 years. He was Reagan's third choice after the first two failed. In the end, Reagan went with a Northern Californian, a conservative to be sure, but with a libertarian streak. Classically trained at Stanford, London School of Economics, and Harvard Law, Kennedy employed an effortless intellect and a respect for liberty. He was never shocking. He was sometimes surprising, but he was mostly a highly reliable conservative. It should not be forgotten that during the Supreme Court term that just ended today, 14 cases were decided by a 5-4 vote. Kennedy voted with the conservatives every time. And now comes the fight over what will be Donald Trump's second justice on the court. The Republicans, in the name of Mitch McConnell, jammed up and held up Obama's court choice to wait 8 months for the presidential election. Now the Democrats, who are the minority in the Senate, want to wait the 4 months until the voters decide the makeup of the new U.S. Senate. Well, tonight, President Trump spoke to supporters at a campaign-style rally in Fargo, North Dakota, where he praised Justice Kennedy and spoke about the importance of this replacement.
Justice Anthony Kennedy, a very special guy, also just announced a little while ago his retirement from the United States Supreme Court. And I'm very honored that he chose to do it during my term in office, because he felt confident in me to make the right choice and carry on his great legacy. That's why he did it. And remember this, so we have a pick to come up. We have to pick a great one. We have to pick one that's going to be there for 40 years, 45 years. We need intellect. We need so many things to go. You know, there's so many elements go into the making of a great justice of the Supreme Court. You got to hit every one of them.
Following Justice Kennedy's announcement today, President Trump spoke at the White House and said the process to find his replacement would begin immediately. He says his replacement will come from a list the White House has compiled of mostly conservative judges. Earlier today, Yale Law School professor Akhil Amar spoke to our own Ali Velshi about that list and what will happen to this so-called idea of a swing vote position on the Supreme Court without Justice Kennedy.
I'm a Democrat. I voted for Hillary Clinton, but the list is a distinguished list. And even if the person picked is to the right of Justice Kennedy on some issues, some of them are actually his former law clerks, that would only mean, frankly, from just a political science perspective, that the middle of the court shifts to John Roberts. It doesn't shift all the way to the furthest right person on the court, and that's the new swing justice. There will always be a swing justice. It's just where that swing happens. And just to remind everyone, John Roberts is a very good man.
Professor Amar went on to point out Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the court's liberal justices to preserve Obamacare. Well, now all eyes turn to the U.S. Senate and the expected political confrontation over whomever the president chooses. Phil Rucker of the Washington Post reports tonight that both Democrats and Republicans will use the Supreme Court vacancy as a rallying cry. Quote, the already ferocious nomination battle is likely to clarify the choices for voters in Senate races across the country, strategists said, and impact other contests down the ballot. And even if Republicans install a replacement for Kennedy before the November election, the debate is still likely to thrust to the forefront issues that have been largely overlooked on the campaign trail until now. Senate Democrats are gearing up for a battle, but earlier today, the Senate Majority Leader gave this crystal clear message on the Senate floor.
We will vote to confirm Justice Kennedy's successor this fall.
There you have it. Let's bring our leadoff panel for a Wednesday night. The aforementioned Philip Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for the Washington Post, Barbara McQuade, former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of the state of Michigan, And we're thrilled to have Tom Goldstein with us, a veteran D.C. attorney who has argued 41 cases before the Supreme Court. He is also publisher of SCOTUS blog, which covers the court. Additionally, he's a lecturer for Harvard Law School in his spare time. And Tom, I'm going to begin with you. How big was this to witness in real time? How big will this be? Give us 50 years as we look back at the scope of American jurisprudence.
Well, it's really impossible to overstate, because what you're looking at here is the justice who really wasn't so much a swing justice, but he was a fifth vote for the left on some critical things like abortion, affirmative action, gay rights. And that vote now will go a step to the right. And so the big barrier to making a big leap to the right in American constitutional law and other issues is now going to be gone. And you're going to get somebody who's much more like a Neil Gorsuch, who we got this term. So it's a pivot point, and it's one that we won't get to come back through again for at least another quarter century, given how long people stay on the court.
Phil Rucker, the president's remarks were closely watched tonight in Fargo. Yeah. Tell us about the Donald Trump you saw on display, and that part we just aired about how Kennedy did this now because of his confidence in Donald Trump to do the right thing.
Well, Brian, there was a lot of chest thumping from President Trump, but that's to be expected because this has been an extraordinarily positive couple of days for him. Remember that travel ban decision, the court upholding his travel ban on some majority Muslim countries, was upheld yesterday. And then today he has this tremendous gift in the vacancy on the court that he's going to be able to fill. And he described it as an opportunity for him, but he also tried to use it as a rallying cry for Republican voters in the midterm elections. He said that the vacancy of Kennedy on the court makes the Supreme Court and the battle for control of the Senate the most important issue of our time. He went on a tear about Heidi Heitkamp, who at one point was his favorite Democrat in the Senate. He brought her on the road with him the last time he was in North Dakota, but today he went after her on issue after issue after issue and warned his base voters that if you let Democrats take control of the Senate and if they have a say in who replaces Justice Kennedy on the court, things could be very bad for them.
Barbara, I'm curious to hear your take on what's at stake with this nomination the president gets to make.
Well, I think one of the really key issues that's likely to confront the court in the coming years is the abortion question. Roe versus Wade. Is there a chance that it could be overturned? I don't know. As Tom said, we've got Justice Roberts now kind of at the center of the storm here, and he has always said that stare decisis, the idea that you respect the precedents that came before, is important to him. And so you would think that he's unlikely to want to reverse Roe versus Wade. But as President Trump said in that clip you played, this justice that he wants to name is likely to serve for 40 to 45 years. So even if it doesn't happen with the next makeup of the court, how about the one after that? And so I think that is something that is likely at stake.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.